The expert told me, your heart isn't confused. It's exhausted from pretending it doesn't miss them. After hearing our story, the expert said, you two are connected in ways that logic cannot untangle. The expert said, you're trying to forget someone whose energy is still wrapped around your soul. I asked the expert why it feels so heavy, and they said, because you're carrying feelings you never said out loud. The expert told me they were never just someone. That's why their absence feels like silence in your bones. The expert said, stop calling it over. Your souls are still in conversation. After listening, the expert said, you didn't fall in love too fast. You finally met someone who matched your depth. The expert told me, you're afraid to reach out, not because you don't care, but because you care too much. I asked the expert why I can't move on, and they said, because your heart hasn't finished its story with them. The expert said, they think about you at the same hours you think about them. The expert told me, you're not longing for attention. You're longing for the connection only they gave you. The expert said, you're scared they'll reject you, but even more scared they might still love you. After hearing everything, the expert said, you two didn't lose each other. You paused at the wrong moment. The expert said, your heart remembers the truth even when your mind tries to forget. The expert told me, you're not imagining their energy. They pull you even from a distance. I asked the expert if they miss me, and they said, their silence is not disinterest, it's fear. The expert said, you care so deeply it terrifies you because you've never cared like this before. The expert told me, your connection is rare. That's why it hurts. Rare things never leave quietly. After listening, the expert said, you didn't ruin anything. You're both just scared of how real it feels. The expert said, you're trying to detach from someone who already lives inside your thoughts. The expert told me, you two mirror each other's wounds, and that's why you feel so exposed. I asked the expert why it feels unfinished, and they said, because it is, the ending hasn't been written yet. The expert said, they're quieter than you, but their feelings are louder. The expert told me, your story didn't end. It transformed into something neither of you knows how to navigate. After hearing our story, the expert said, your heart isn't broken, it's open. The expert said, you're not addicted to them. You're attached to the version of yourself they bring out. The expert told me, you want answers from someone who is still trying to understand their own heart. I asked the expert if I should let go, and they said, your heart wouldn't be fighting this hard if it was meant to end. The expert said, their silence isn't rejection, it's a battle you don't see. The expert told me, you're scared because they matter in ways you didn't expect. The expert said, you two are emotionally synchronized. That's why you feel their shifts instantly. After talking, the expert said, your love is louder than your fear. That's the real issue. The expert told me they didn't stop caring, they just stopped showing it. I asked the expert if they still think of me, and they said, more often than they wish to admit. The expert said, you're not hurting because it's over. You're hurting because you still care. The expert told me, you're looking for closure from someone whose heart never closed. The expert said, you don't want distance, you want reassurance. After hearing everything, the expert said, you're fighting emotions that we're meant to be felt, not hidden. The expert told me, they're as confused as you. They just hide it behind silence. The expert said, you're not weak for loving them. You're brave for feeling this deeply. I asked the expert what they think we are, and they said, a connection too intense for ordinary definitions. The expert told me, this isn't obsession, this is unfinished love. The expert said, you can't deny the connection because it's already written into your spirit. The expert said, they're scared you'll see the truth, that they feel everything too. After listening, the expert told me, love like this is rare. Don't underestimate it. The expert said, your heart knows their frequency. That's why no one else fits. The expert told me they feel safest with you, even if they don't know how to admit it. I asked the expert why I feel pulled to them, and they said, because they're still thinking about you. The expert said, you don't miss the past. You miss the moments you haven't created yet. The expert told me, you're afraid of losing someone who was never yours to lose. The expert said, they left physically, but the connection never left. I spoke to an expert about us, and they said, you're not imagining it. This connection is rewriting the rules of love itself. The expert told me something shocking. You two aren't just in love. You're in a spiritual collision that was destined long before you met. I told the expert everything, and they said, your heart is not confused. It's terrified because it found exactly what it wants. After explaining our story, the expert looked at me and said, you only meet a person like this once. Don't lose them. The expert listened to me speak about you, then whispered, this kind of bond doesn't fade. It either transforms or destroys. I spoke to an expert and they said, they feel you even in silence. That's why letting go hurts more than staying. The expert said something I still can't forget. You don't love them out of need. You love them out of recognition. After hearing everything, the expert smiled and said, "Your souls didn't meet by accident. Something bigger is happening here." The expert told me, "You're scared because this love is real, and real love exposes every part of you." I asked the expert why I can't move on, and they said, "Because your heart already decided who its home is." The expert told me, "You're not obsessed, you're deeply connected. There's a difference most people never experience." After hearing our story, the expert said, "You two are mirrors. That's why the connection feels both healing and painful." I spoke to an expert, and they said, "The reason you can't forget them is because they still carry pieces of you." The expert said, "You want answers, but what you truly want is them, completely, honestly, courageously." When I finished talking, the expert only said, "Your love is louder than your fear. Listen closely." The expert told me, "You don't miss their presence. You miss the version of yourself that only they awaken." I asked the expert why you affect me so deeply, and they said, "Because you met the one person who sees through you." The expert said, "They're not just someone you love, they're someone your soul remembers." The expert looked at me and said, "You're trying to understand something that was never meant to be logical, only felt." I told the expert about us, and they said, "You're expecting normal answers for a connection that is anything but normal." The expert said, "You didn't fall in love. You recognized your future in them." The expert told me, "You're scared of losing them, but they're just as scared of losing you. They just hide it better." I asked the expert if we're meant to be, and they said, "You already know the answer. You're just afraid to admit it." The expert told me, "The silence between you two is louder than most people's conversations." The expert said, "You keep running from the one person who would never run from you." I spoke to an expert, and they said, "If they didn't care, you wouldn't feel their absence so painfully." The expert told me, "Your connection is real. Stop doubting what your heart already knows." After hearing everything, the expert said, "They changed you, and that's why you can't go back to who you were." The expert said, "You two aren't unfinished. You're just stuck between fear and truth." I asked the expert why it hurt so much, and they said, "Because you're holding back what your heart is screaming for." The expert told me, "You want them in ways you're too scared to admit, even to yourself." The expert said, They feel your distance, just like you feel theirs. After listening, the expert told me, your love story isn't over. It's paused, waiting for courage. The expert said, you didn't imagine their feelings, you sensed them. I asked the expert what's wrong with me, and they said, nothing, you just love too deeply for shallow connections. The expert told me, your heart won't let go because it knows it found something rare. The expert said, you two are tied by something stronger than time or distance. After talking, the expert said, what scares you is how perfectly they fit into the life you dream of. The expert told me, you're not confused. You're overwhelmed by the intensity of the connection. The expert said, they didn't walk away. They paused because the feelings got too real. I asked the expert if they still think of me, and they said, more than you think, just less than you wish. The expert said, you're scared of loving them wrong, and they're scared you'll stop loving them. I spoke to an expert, and they said, you don't want closure. You want another chance. The expert said, you feel broken because you tried to fight destiny. The expert told me, your heart chose them long before your mind caught up. After hearing everything, the expert said, they understand you. That's why they frighten you. The expert said, your story isn't ending, it's transforming.